Nice to see you guys. So we're gonna have a blanket and a ball. Let's start on our backs. So just finding a nice comfy seat or finding a nice comfy way to your spine. And just letting your body receive here for a moment. Take some big full inhales and really feel in to those exhales. Think about how those exhales allow your body to reset against the mat or floor beneath you. Really note how you land at the end of each cycle of breath. And feel into that sensation, almost a pause, almost a stillness at the end of each cycle of breath. So there's this mother and her daughter. The mother's very well known for her pottery. And her daughter's taken some interest, and so she wants to share her knowledge of throwing pottery. The next time that you exhale, that you land, that you feel that stillness, let's hold the breath out. And instead of that holding being grippy, try to just let it be an extended pause. And then pull your breath back in. And exhale, and just again at the end of the exhale, feel that extended pause. And then we'll pull the breath back in. And let's do that a couple more times. Just an extended pause at the end of your breath. And the next time that you inhale, let's use that inhale energy to pull the thighs in towards the torso. Wrap your hands around either your hamstrings or your shins and give yourself a nice little compression here. Kind of two places this impacts the most. One is the hips, and the other is that mid back compression. Trying to space out that mid back. And as the mid back spaces out, think about broadening across the shoulder girdle. And then we'll relax the feet back down to the mat. And as the feet touch the mat, think about the neutrality from the base of the skull all the way to the bottoms of the feet. And maintain that. So lumbar awareness as you extend the arms overhead towards the space behind you, not towards the ceiling or sky. Think about the length between the bottom of the tailbone and kind of the top of the shoulder girdle here. And then retract the scapula in towards the spinal column and turn the palms up towards the ceiling or sky. Mm, Arms to cactus. Feel the softness in your breath kind of resonating at the base of the throat. And then let's let the knees work to one direction or the other, whatever side feels easiest and best. And then we'll press ourselves up into a seat. And in the seated space, just let your spine settle. Really think about giving yourself the ability to get vertical in the spine. Try to recreate that same neutrality we had on our back. Take the right palm and face it palm down on your right leg and extend the left arm towards the ceiling or sky. And so stay with that neutrality, and then let's drop the left hand to the right side of the head. And we'll just lean and energize over here into that head or neck space. Trying to elongate that lateral edge. Retract that right scapula so that we feel that elongation possibility on the right side. And then let's bring our head back to neutral. Try to refine that equilibrium. Think about the anterior posterior neutrality. Think about that bilateral balance across the shoulder girdle. And then let's take this to the second side. Right arm extends straight up, left palm down. Right hand can find that left side of the head, and we'll tilt and elongate here. Really thinking about the lateral expansion. Think about retracting that scapula. And then we'll bring our head back to neutral. Relax in wanting to find that bilateral balance. Thinking about that anterior posterior neutrality. Take your left hand and place that behind your spine, palm away from you. So back of the hand to the small of the back. Turn your gaze towards the right. And then once you get that full rotation, let's inhale and lift the chin. And then exhale and tuck the chin. Inhale and lift. Exhale and tuck. And we'll just work back and forth here. Into that lift And tuck. Trying to find that neck and shoulder release, that lateral expansion continuation. Let's do this 2 more times. Think about the placement of your left shoulder blade as you're moving. And then eventually, we'll bring the head back to neutral. Let the arms rest in neutral. And we'll work to the second side. Right hand comes behind us. We have the palm facing away, back of the hand of the small of the back. Turn the gaze over towards the left. Set that full rotation first, and then we'll inhale and lift the chin. Exhale and tuck. Inhale and lift the chin. Exhale and tuck. Let's just work through this a few more times. Getting full range of motion. Seeking out those corners. And then eventually, when you feel balance left to right, we'll bring our head back to neutral. That right arm find its place. Let's go palms up here. We'll tuck the shoulder blades back, so a little broadening across the anterior shoulder girdle. Lift the chin. Maybe push that bottom jaw forward as you do, opening up this anterior throat space. Bring our head back to neutral. Let the eyes close and just try to feel in to this generalized expansion around the shoulder girdle. And the breath be a little bit softer here. And then with an exhale, let's tuck our chin. And as the chin tucks, try to squeeze the top of the shoulders up and behind the ears. So not just back and not just up, but up and back. Trying to get the tops of the shoulders as high as we can get them and as retracted as we can get them. And just hold that as you inhale your head back to neutral. So shoulders are up. Then start to circle in with both shoulders. So either direction works, but you want to hit that checkpoint where we had full retraction and full lift in each cycle, so that we're really into that full capacity. It pulls across the anterior shoulder girdle and it squeezes into that posterior shoulder girdle. And then reverse your direction. Again, think about that checkpoint where you hit the full lift, full retraction, and then allow for the full completion of the circle. of the cycle of movement. Eventually, you come to a place where you feel balanced in both directions. Let's pause there. Just slow down there. Let the eyes close and think about finding that end of your exhale cycle and then a pause and expansion of that end of that stillness. And you give ourselves just 20 more seconds here. Just feeling into that stillness, expanding around the shoulders and neck. And then when it feels appropriate, we're going to try to let's clasp our hands behind our head. So we cradle the head in the palm of the hand. So we just have an interlock that comes behind us. And then from here, squeeze your elbows so that the triceps can kind of run parallel with the side of your head. So elbows point directly towards the front of your room. Now it's very easy to be forcing your head forward here. So we want to push back into our head, into that hand cradle in an equivalent way of the energy of that's pulling us forward. So we stay neutral. And then with an exhale, turn towards your right. And then inhale back to neutral. And then exhale towards the left. And inhale back to neutral. Let's exhale to the right. And inhale to neutral. And exhale to the left. And inhale to neutral. Let's do that 2 more times in each direction. It's going to be a really challenging rotation. A lot of the times this is going to manifest in rigidity around that thoracic joint, so around the mid-back rotation capacity. So try to draw your breath into any stickiness, any resistance here. And then when you're complete, let's come back to neutral. And to kind of expand into that thoracic joint, let's take ourselves forward into a little seated fold. Really want to feel the mid back expand here. Like the exhale, the release half of your breath allows for the expansion. And then when it feels appropriate, let's put ourselves back into a seat. Let's have our blanket probably from a shelf fold. Let's go hot dog fold with that. So we end up hot dog fold. We'll have our ball handy. And let's set the blanket across the mat. We're actually just going to use the blanket to create a very low key supported bridge. So how you get on here is totally your choice. I'm going to get on here by just elevating my seat so that I'm on the blanket and then lowering down. But if you want to lower down and then support in a bridge, that works better for your spine, do that. But just a real delicate little bridge here. We want the lift to be subtle, and we want the majority of the spine to be completely neutral. Just a low back bend, a very soft, subtle low back bend. And then just settle into your breath again. Think about if it would be advantageous to go into that exhale landing that then expands the duration. That pause at the end of the exhale cycle. And so this mother-daughter tandem decide they're going to enter into a contest. A local community is throwing a pottery contest where teams are going to create collective projects. Two vases that will be judged not by judges, but by an auction. And the tandem that has the most interest at auction will be determined the winner. And so these two determine that their ideal setup is going to be to create two identical vases, perfectly cylindrical, with a very muted glaze. And this is kind of the daughter's plan. She's kind of been transfixed on this idea of symmetrical mirroring sides. And so she wants to continue that into this project. And so they set out to do that. They pick out kind of the equivalent sized starting clay mounds. They get them all set up on the wheel. The mother's coaching her daughter on kind of the appropriate way to center the clay. And they begin throwing these cylindrical flower vases. Whether it's good coaching or good mothering or genetic, the daughter is she's natural throwing pottery. And so very quickly and relatively easily, this cylindrical vase begins to emerge from the mound of clay. Check back in with your breath and check back in with that thoracic joint area, that thoracic shelf area. Those deep twists with the elbows by our head can really illuminate some dysfunction there. And so if you're feeling a little bit of rigidity there, a little bit of stickiness there, really think about the impact of your breath cycles, both the inhale half and the exhale half. I'm getting that mid back to relax, to release. Let's give ourselves 60 more seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, we can lift our belt line high enough to slide our blanket prop out from underneath us. And as you settle and unwind back into that neutrality, inhale and bring your knees to a bent position so the kneecaps can point towards the ceiling or sky if you haven't, or if they're not there. And then we're going to engage our ball. We're going to spend just a little bit more time trying to free up that shoulder girdle neck area. And so this portion of this practice, depending on kind of how your neck and shoulder are health-wise, could be pretty intense. So we're going to take this ball and we're going to place it underneath the right shoulder. We're looking kind of at the trap, just below the trap musculature. So if you think about being off the spinal column, off the scapula, and still capturing that meaty bit of musculature at the top of the shoulder structure, and letting the ball settle. For some of us, this alone, if you have a lot of dysfunction in that unionization between the shoulder and neck, just placing the ball there alone can be incredibly intense. So we've got to get to the point where we can relax into our cycles of breath. And then we're going to inhale the right arm towards the ceiling or sky, and then exhale it overhead towards the space behind us. And then we're just going to move dynamically. Inhale towards the ceiling or sky. And exhale towards the overhead space behind us. Again, depending on your shoulder and neck health here, this could be relatively easy and fluid, or this could be incredibly challenging. No matter which this tends to be, right? Incredibly challenging, incredibly easy, or anywhere on that spectrum in between. We want the breath to be supportive and delicate and easy so that we are creating a sensation of expansion, so that we are creating a nervous system response of ease, so that our body knows it's safe to expand here. Let's do this just a couple more times. And then when it feels like you're ready, let's keep the arm extended overhead for a moment. Take a couple of cycles, full inhale cycles, full exhale cycles in this extended overhead. So into the space behind you position. And see if you can get an even deeper softening of that musculature. And then we'll relax and remove that ball and let your body just settle in and feel in that space. And let's do the same thing to the second side. Ball comes underneath the left shoulder. Find that meaty tissue above the scapula, off the spinal column, just below the top of the shoulder, kind of underside of the trap musculature. And then the left arm's going to reach towards the ceiling or sky. We'll exhale overhead and inhale back to neutral. Or back towards that ceiling or sky space. Exhale, overhead space. Inhale, ceiling or sky space. Same thing, although it may be different than side one. We want the response to be the same, whether we're on the incredibly challenging or relatively easy side of the spectrum. We want our breath to be delicate. This neck and shoulder region, this stress region, to know that even if we've been stressing and compressing on a daily basis, right now, in this moment, it's all okay. You can relax and expand us. It's just easy and fluid. Next time that the exhale takes us overhead into the space behind us, let's pause there, relax through a couple of cycles of breath. When it comes to the point where you feel balance left to right, let's remove that ball. Let both arms relax. Feel into that relaxation. As you get into that relaxation, really try to feel that bilateral balance. Even if there's more rigidity on your left side or your right side, we didn't get it all perfectly worked out to neutral. Think about being relaxed equally. We'll give ourselves just 15 more seconds here. And then when it feels appropriate, let's engage our blanket, our towel, and we're going to bring that to towel length. So from shelf fold to a single unfold, and we'll roll that. Just creating a roll that can go across our ankles, bottoms of the feet together. Little supine butterfly action. This is a counterweight to all of the shoulder work we've done. So we've opened up all this shoulder girdle space, all this neck to shoulder integration space. Now absorb that into the hips. As the hips externally open, there's more room in both the posterior and anterior chains. And as the hips kind of take up that extra slack, the space between the hips and the shoulders gets expanded. So feel your spine expand. Feel your torso expand. And so as this daughter's throwing this remarkably cylindrical, perfectly symmetrical flower base, and it's getting taller and taller on the potter's wheel. The center of mass needs to become more and more precise. And so any little offsetting of this cylindrical column can create really catastrophic results. And so there's this little tiny, almost imperceptible wobble that starts to happen in the daughter's vase. And her mom, doesn't need to pay attention in the same way. She's done this skill. She's developed, honed this skill for decades. So she's looking over at her daughter's ace and she's kind of helping coach her along as she sees this microscopic little imbalance in the spin. And she's able to get her daughter back to perfectly symmetrical. And she looks back at her vase, the one she was throwing while helping her daughter out. And her thumbs have kind of collapsed into the top rim. And so there's these little thumb indentations. And they're not barely perceptible, they're very perceptible. And she kind of looks at her watch and she's like, we don't really have time to fix this. So she asks her daughter, like, we either have to fire these now or we have to not enter the contest. And her daughter becomes very upset about this. She's incredibly mad that her mom, this professional otter, is going to enter into this contest a not perfectly cylindrical vase. But they decide to go ahead with it. They get them in the drawing room. They let them dry. They come back and they add this very neutral, delicate glaze, and then they fire them. And they turn out beautifully, but they are not the perfectly cylindrical set that the daughter had expected. And so when they do finally make their way to auction, his daughter's almost embarrassed to put this pair up. She asks her mom if she would be willing to bid on it just so that someone will, so they won't be embarrassed of no one bidding on their creation. Give yourself 60 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, let's bring our knees back to neutral. We'll pull the thighs in towards the torso. You can take that blanket off or towel off and give yourself a little squeeze here. And we can release the feet back down. Let's grab our blanket and our ball. And we're going to do my every week quest here. Ball goes in the blanket. Blanket and ball come underneath the neck, and we set our head in this really nice extension of the cervical spine. I'm trying to stay true to this idea of doing this at least once each week. to counteract any screen time that we spend with our head tilted down. Legs can be extended here, knees can be bent. Bottoms of the feet can go back together if that feels ideal for you. Think about adding that pause at the end of your breath. And so, wanting to make her daughter feel comfortable, she agrees that if no one bids on their entry, she'll put in a bid so that they're not embarrassed by no one being interested. So, this makes her daughter feel a little bit more comfortable, and they both attend the auction. And everyone kind of has their little pedestal set up, and the lighting's really nice and intense, kind of focused on each art project. Eventually, the doors open to the public, and people begin to flood in. Give ourselves 60 more seconds here. Just thinking about how you can be more and more relaxed into the support of the ball of the prop beneath you. And when it feels appropriate, let's bring our knees to a bent position if they're not already there. We can pull that prop out from underneath our neck. We just ask ourselves if there's anything that we might need, that we might want, that we could benefit from prior to finding a shape of stillness for Shavasana. If there is anything that we need, want, any movement, any adjustments, any tweaks, any thoughts, let's offer that. And if you have everything that you need, if you're perfectly ready for your version of stillness, then let's settle into that. So as the evening goes on, more and more people start coming by this mom-daughter's presentation. People start picking up the vase made by the mother with the little thumb indentation at the top. And they start commenting on this vase more and more and more. As more people talk about it, more people come until it's just this constant flow, like a line of people just waiting to observe this up close, to put their hands on it. Finding your own cycle of breath, your own version of ease. And the bids started to roll in, one after another, after another, after another. People were transfixed in this pairing, not by the perfectly cylindrical vase, by the vase with some indentation. The vase that when you picked it up, your hand fit perfectly, like it was meant for any hand that grabbed it. And bid after bid after bid after bid continued to roll in. We'll start to bring some movement into our fingers and our toes. Our wrists, ankles, elbows, shoulders. Feel all that shoulder space you've created. Hips, neck, head, jaw, face, tongue. Eventually, the whole body moves. And we'll utilize that movement to transition into a seat. Seated space, spine gets tall, breath gets fluid, eyes close. So by the end of the night, almost anyone and everyone who had come to this auction had bid on this mom and daughter's vase set. And it wasn't, to the daughter's surprise, it wasn't about being perfect, about being symmetrical. People became transfixed on this mistake that had built perfection in the way your hand interacted with the vase. So our next inhale, we'll bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days and beyond, can you observe imperfections within you that may be your strongest suits? See how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice. Happy Mother's Day to everybody. And thank you for being you. Namaste. Thank you guys so much for being here. Have a beautiful rest of your days. Thank you for spending a little bit of this time with me. Love you guys so much. I'll see you soon.